It was day one of the Silva Method in Toronto, and what an interesting day. My name's Carolyn Wellman, and I run a business called Words for Winning, and I'm in the process of republishing out of print books, and one of them is a Silva-based book called The Silva Method of Mind Mastery. So you can't teach something you don't know. So I've been taking the Silva Method, and I'm in the process of becoming a Silva instructor because actually Dr. Tag Powell, the author of this book, was a Silva instructor. And this was even endorsed by Jose Silva himself. And when I took the Silva Method 2 weeks ago in Connecticut with Ken Casilla, he actually told me that he was the one that certified Tag to be an instructor, and I will be doing that with Ken at some point because I've taken it in Canada, but I need to also take it in the US, so I will be doing it again. So I'm still waiting for my certificate, but I'm also in the process of so I'm still taking, because you have to take it 5 times to actually qualify to become a Silva instructor, and I've only taken it, this is my 3rd. I've assisted a bunch, so I've probably taken it like 10 or 15, I don't know, I've lost track how many times I assisted in Toronto, because remember, Helene Hatzel was Jose Silva's assistant, and I've written down all her books too. A lot of Silva touch points. Anyway, this is day 1 with Stephen Dobosh in Toronto, and because I'm up here, sometimes I help him. Like if you've experienced the Silva Method, on a Monday night, he does it like every other Monday, which is almost the identical introductory class that Helene Hatzel took when she met Jose in 1960s. I thought it was 65. Stephen said it was 66. Anyway, it was months after she won the house that she met. A few months after they moved into the house she won, she met Jose. So a lot of people say, well, you got to give Jose credit for her manifesting all the prizes. No, she didn't meet him till after. She actually manifested the biggest prizes. Anyway, biggest shock when I showed up today, Stephen had shaved his mustache. He had this like iconic like mustache. You can see it in his older videos. And it was gone. Clean shaven. So day 1, so the whole point of the Silva Method is so that you can live in abundance, ease, and joy. Who doesn't want that? And what was really interesting is because even though I've seen it several times, because I've taken it again, it just seemed to resonate more. Right? So the whole program goes from very structured to less structured. So the idea is that you're slowly moving into your intuition over the 4 days. And we learn to control our mind and tap into our intuition. So that's the whole premise of the Silva Method. So when somebody says, what is that? That's what it is. And we have a bicameral brain. And the idea is we're going to get whole brain balance. And some people are right brained and some people are left brained. So the idea is you're going to strengthen the weaker side of the brain. Like I'm extremely left brained, so I'm working on my right side. And it's basically like exercise. So one of the things he had us do is, why are you here? What do I really want? Which ties into Select It from Helene Hatzel. I've got all these like cryptic notes. And how do I feel? I even wrote a side note for myself. How do I feel when I read these goals? So I make out the goals. And Ken was helping me with some of my goals. And he says, I decided that one of the things I want to do is instigate people to do some internal investigation. In other words, look inward. I want to spread joy and fun. I want to live passionately and get other people to live in their passion. So that's what I've got so far. And Jose Silva, the greatest quote, the greatest discovery, this is a quote from Jose Silva, the greatest discovery that you will ever make is the potential of your mind. He's not wrong. And where is your mind? So it's brain versus consciousness and meditating. So one of the things that Stephen wants to instill in us is that meditating should be a habit no different than brushing your teeth. You don't forget to brush your teeth. You shouldn't forget to meditate. It's a habit. And then he gave us this history of the Silva method. And it was originally called the Basic Lecture Series, which is what Helene and Tag learned. I added that because I figured it out based on the dates. And Diana Silva is the one currently maintaining her dad's legacy. Before that, it was Laura Silva. He had 10 children, so they're all involved in one way or another. Now, Tag learned from Ken, and Helene learned from Jose. Well, and Tag learned from Jose too. But Stephen learned from Laszlo Domjan, who is Hungarian, because like 10% of Hungary has taken the Silva method. Like, it's a crazy amount of Hungarians that have taken the Silva method. And Laszlo actually translated the Silva method into Hungarian. And then he had some testimonials. One was from Shakiti Gawana, and then a quote from Deepak Chopra, and a testimonial. Jack Canfield also has taken the Silva method. I mean, like, all the big teachers have taken the Silva method. What does that tell you right there? And it has been around since 1966. Like, they're coming up on their 60th anniversary. It has stood the test of time, right? Like, if it was a fly-by-night type of a system or, course, it wouldn't be here. So, and Stephen said, if you really look at it, it's an umbrella self-improvement program, which means if you look at all the other self-improvement programs, they are somehow tied to the Silva method, which is really fascinating. And then he gave a little testimonial about how the Silva program changed Laszlo's life. Now, I have contacted Laszlo because he also translated the Name It and Claim It game into Hungarian, but it's no longer in print, and he is got severe Parkinson's at this point. So I did send him copies of Helene's updated editions, and he was really happy to get them, but I don't think anything else is going to happen. And then there was also a testimonial from Wayne Dyer, who also took the Silva method. So what you actually practice in the Silva method is dynamic meditation. And then Stephen did a little outline of the power of the mind. We hear that all the time. And the speed at which we process information. Now, I'm just giving you guys an overview. This is no way to replace the actual course. Like, you can't replace taking an in-person 4-day workshop that's like 10 hours a day. You can't. I mean, we meditated 4 times today. Like, it's insane the amount of stuff you learn in person, and it's so much better when you're doing it with other people, in my opinion. So one of the things he wants to instill in us is we're always trying to strive to improve, but people put a lot of pressure on themselves, and he's like, don't do that. If you can just be like 1 pinch, 1%, one minute percentage better than you were before, then you're making progress. And everybody can do that. So what the Silva method can help you with, here's the list of things that have been reported from taking the Silva method. People fall asleep better, people improve their memory, make better decisions, wake up naturally, you can relieve headaches and migraines, you can achieve your goals, and you can help your body heal. And then he told a health story about Eva Horvath, who used the meditation to shrink a tumor. Now, he is not a medical doctor. There's no like medical endorsements or anything like that. Like, these are just stories from people who've had success. You may or may not have the same results. Now, here's a good trick, and I teach this as the Contest Queen over my Contest Queen channel, because a lot of people get frustrated entering a lot of sweepstakes. So I always tell them when they're entering, oh, I wonder if this is the one I'm going to win. Ooh, is this the prize that's going to show up? I'm so excited. I can only wait. So it gives a sense of positivity to all of the activity you're doing. So he said the exact same thing. Everything in your life, ask, I wonder if. Ooh, I wonder if I took this path. Ooh, I wonder if they made that choice. Oh, I wonder if I did this. I wonder if I did that. You see how it changes the energy of anything? So he said there's more benefits. So then he started talking about more benefits, and he said you can stop bleeding. Now, that might sound outrageous, but if you read the Name It and Claim It game, you would know Helene had taken the Silva method and then was in a terrible car accident, and she told her body to stop the bleeding. If that's not a testimonial, I don't know what is. And then Stephen told a story. His father has dementia, and they lost him. His dad went out a door, and so he just went to level and found his dad. They said, now we got, and his kids were saying, now we have to air tag grandpa. And then he told another medical testimonial from a Mrs. Toth. I don't know why we don't have Mrs. Toth as first name. She also shrank some tumors, but these ones were in her lungs. And more benefits than he tells a testimonial, and then he goes on to more benefits. Increasing your intuition to do case studies. And this is what I talked about when I took Ken's. You can get to the point where you're 85% accurate doing case studies. And that is at the end of day 4. So we're only day 1. Now, what I find interesting is as I'm in the process of doing, taking the classes and looking to be an instructor, I don't know if I'm going to be teaching it, but I can see where every teacher puts in their own stories from their experience. So like the Stop the Bleeding, I would actually, I wouldn't tell Mrs. Toth's story. I would tell Helene's story of how she stopped the bleeding because that's who I'm tied to. So I could see where I would be inserting my own different little events. You can quit unwanted habits without struggle. So a lot of people quit smoking, drinking, eating sugar. And you can send mental text to people. When they got to that later in the day, I told a funny story about how sending mental texts. And Stephen says he gets it. Sometimes when he's teaching, he'll get texts from students, like not physical texts, mental texts. And he talks about the Bertland family, who's famous in the Silva community for sending mental texts to each other. And actually, when I was visiting Helene, she was mentally texting me that she had dinner ready. But apparently, I'm a terrible receiver because I didn't know that. Or at least I was at the time. I might be a better one now. Carolyn Deal was an instructor in the U.S., and they told an energy story about her. And most of us let me try that whole sentence again. Most of us are surprised at how intuitive we actually are. Because do you really believe it? I do. How many times have you had a gut feeling and ignored it and turned out to be right? That's your intuition. It's not rocket science. And we get who we are, not what we want. Well, we've heard that a lot. And he really likes technology, so he has a lot of Google search references and ChatGPT. So, wouldn't it be amazing if you could use your higher intelligence, just like people are using Google and ChatGPT, because your mind is a supercomputer. And he talked about how the brain's mapped. And there's another great quote from Jose Silva. We can get everything we need for ourselves without taking from anyone else, without hurting anybody. Jose Silva. Now, funny, because the immediate thing I thought of is when I teach people how to win sweepstakes, I always say there's enough prizes for everybody. Like, we can all be winners. There's enough prizes out there, right? Like, now, if you have any questions regarding the Silva method, leave them in the comments as I review day 1 of the Toronto Silva method with Stephen Dobosh. If you go to my website and right on the homepage, there is a banner that says free introductory class. Now, only Stevens are on there. I'm working on getting Ken's on there, which is on my to-do list for tonight, to email him back, and it's already late. I gotta get to bed because we got an early start tomorrow. So what you want to do is get to a point where you're always, when you're in your basic plane, which is between alpha and theta, right? Which is the scale of brain evolution. There's a famous picture, you can look it up, of the map, the alpha map that Jose used. What was cool is when I took it in Connecticut 2 weeks ago, Ken had the original flip chart, well, what's all on slides now, was all the diagrams on all the Canvas diagrams that they used to use. It was so cool. Anyway, so he said Thomas Edison also used to use very similar techniques, like going down into the alpha to tap in to invent things. And then, of course, we had a break, and then we came back and he talked about methods of relaxation. Another quote of Albert Einstein. Now, what happens is sometimes if we're working on a problem, and Helene Hatzel always called them projects. We don't have problems, we have projects. But if you're working on something and you're stuck and you're frustrated, and you go off and you do something else, like you go and take a walk, you wash the dishes, you take a shower, you go and garden, poop, the idea comes into your head because you can't solve a problem in the same consciousness that created it. And it's known as a zen of raking, right? When you're doing something else and you're letting that part of the brain just wander, it comes up with the idea. It taps into that consciousness. Now, I wrote this note. This is a little bit of Robert Edward Grant, who I love. And he says you're always a you inverse. So everything you see outside of you is you pushed out. So Stephen was saying you are in control at all times. Well, that is the you inverse, right? Then we did the centering exercise, which is also known as the long relax. And you can find it. I think Mindvalley actually has an 18-minute version on YouTube you can try if you want to try it. Now, something that happens when we're busy and tired, you fall asleep during the meditation. So some tips, and I didn't know this. I tried it, and actually one time I even sat on my stool, kind of like a meditation bench. I think I still dozed off. To avoid falling asleep, don't sit back in the chair and sit at the edge of your seat. So it kind of makes you, I'm going to take my Zafu tomorrow and see if it makes a difference. And we talked about Nikola Tesla and electrical waves and how we can tap into them. Because we're surrounded by waves at all times, like radio waves, cellular waves, Wi-Fi. They're all invisible and they're everywhere. So the same with consciousness. It's everywhere and we just can't see it. And what we're doing in the Silva method is we're learning to tune into that universal collective consciousness. Now, those are my words. I added that in. Then he showed an 18-minute TED Talk by Jill Bolt Taylor regarding, it's called A Stroke of Insight. It was from 2008, February 2008. It is so good. I remember seeing her on Oprah. That is a hot minute ago. So we can make, I have some cryptic notes here. I put deep inner peace, circuitry, and we can choose at any moment. I have no idea what I was referring to with those notes. But he always showed how, how we think and how we act is kind of like a limo. So the thoughts are the passengers, the brain is the driver, and the engine takes action, right? So it's always thought before the driver, takes action. So it's like non-physical to physical to 3D. And then he always tells this funny hemorrhoid story about how he always called people a pain in the ass. And then when he stopped, his hemorrhoids cleared up because we have 60, I'm not doing his story justice. We have 60,000 thoughts per day. And so he's reminding people that it's not the computer, it's the program. So you have to change the program. Like, what have you got programmed? And that's what you're going to be doing. So and here's the other thing. Are you sending counterproductive messages, competing thoughts that cancel each other out? Are you negating your manifestations? Like, if you've got two competing thoughts, they're going to null each other out. And you have to always take conscious action, not just action, conscious action. So there was an experiment similar to the Dr. Emoto water experiment with plants, where, kids talk to one. Apparently you can find it on YouTube. It's called the IKEA plant experiment. And they talk positively to one plant and negatively to the other. And of course, the positive spoken to plant flourished, and the one that was talked to harshly died. And then he talks about a teacher who took the Silva method, and then she was teaching summer school, and most of the kids were failing math. And instead of teaching math, this time she got the kids to give all the reasons why they didn't like math, and they focused on changing all those negative thoughts to positive thoughts, even if they're neutral, like, well, I guess math is okay. It can be used to calculate things. Like, it didn't have to be exuberant, but it wasn't negative, right? And then she taught the math, the 4 weeks worth of math in 2 weeks, and all the kids passed. Now, they didn't all do great, but they passed. So they all passed with 50% less effort. So that's phenomenal. And then he showed us a 2008 video of his son who was a cadet, and they're all marching in sync. So the idea is that we're going to get everything in sync in our brain. Michael Loge talks about this. So Stephen talked about cleaning out your mind and removing all the current negative thoughts and replacing them with new empowering thoughts. And Michael Loge in his book, The Law of Attraction, talks about this. Like, you want to remove don't, not, and no. That kind of a thing. And you don't have to be perfect, just better than before. And that's where that whole cancel came thing. Now, I asked, when we were with Ken, we asked him why it was cancel, not just cancel. Because cancel is really a thought disruptor. Because it's not the usual way of talking. So it's really going to disrupt your thought patterns so you can switch your thought patterns. And then we had a mental house cleaning handout, which I left in my bag in the hall, and I'm not going to go get it to show you. But the idea was, it was a piece of paper with the T exercise, where you have the left and the right. So on one side of the paper, you write down all your negative thoughts, and then on the right side, you write better feeling thoughts. And then he talked about Norbert Bank, who after taking the Silva method, became the first person to become a 2-language interpreter at the EU, which has never happened before. And then he talked about another story about actually Carolyn Deal's assistant, which was nice, about how she changed her thoughts and her life changed. So if you're in the process of manifestation, you want to reprogram the app. He's referring to your brain and thought process. So the other thing too is, if you have a negative thought or are struggling on something, you could say, if that is true, what would my life be like? So if I published all of Tag's books this year, what would my life be like? If I don't know, I can't think of something right now. It's late. It was a long day. And so then we did the mental house cleaning exercise. I took copious notes today, more than I did with Ken on his day one. Then we talked about the benefits of meditation by Dr. Herbert Benson, and he figured out that 20 minutes of meditation equals 3 hours of sleep to your body. And we talked about the mental screen. So it's always about, let me see if I can do it here. The idea is you're going to look out your third eye. So when you're imagining things, it's kind of like watching, like, imagine if you're in a movie theater, you're looking at about that angle, right? And then he talked about 3 areas. And you could reduce resistance. You're going to do dynamic visualization. And I somehow missed the 3rd one. I have to go ask him tomorrow. Then we did the memory peg exercise, which is interesting. Now, he does an example of it. Ken didn't. Ken felt time was better spent elsewhere. And then he talked about how the Silva method can be used in business applications. Bob Stiller, the president of Green Mountain Coffee Roasters, all staff have taken the Silva method. Now, I'm just going to flip back here to day 1 with Ken, because I'm pretty sure that he used that exact same example. Long relax. We did the long relax. Oh, and Ken likes to take alpha breaks. I gotta use that myself. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't see it here right off the top of my... Right off the top. I'm pretty sure Ken used that example because it seems so familiar. And he did talk about Dr. Emoto's work. So the idea is it's not like it is a cookie cutter course in the sense of like every teacher has to teach the same things. But sometimes each teacher switches the lessons just a smidge to work with their own flow. And I asked Ken about that, and he said, yeah, for example, he couldn't understand Laura Silva's slides, like the way she taught. It confused him. And he's been doing this for 53 years, and he was at one point the international training director. Anyway, then we had a break, and then we did a little I always butchered this. I'm just butchering it. It is so late. Ho'oponopono, I think is... Okay, I give up. It's the one where you say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. So that was a good exercise. And then he talked about all the formula type techniques. So the sleep exercise, the awake exercise, the clock exercise, the dream exercise, and the headache exercise. Those you can find in the book, The Silva Method, which is also in my bag that I'm taking to the course every day. And just as a rule of thumb, before any technique, you always do the 3-2-1 method to go to level. So if you're not sure, always go to level. And have the intention that you want it to work. So whatever method you're trying or using, you have the intention that this is going to work. And what you're always finding out is, what's your current situation? What do you want? How will you get it? And then take action. Those are the 4 steps for all of them. So I even asked myself here, I put a little question, why am I not practicing the clock technique every night? And then he talked about the glass of water and then the mental texting. Well, if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I took this in February. I was actually assisting, and I thought, I'm going to test this out. So every day for 2 weeks, from February 1st to February 13th, I put it out there that I would love some flowers for Valentine's Day. And George is not very romantic. He's the kindest man I've ever met, but that's just not his style. And on Valentine's, he went out and bought me and my daughter a bouquet of flowers. I got a bouquet of, just, I want to say generic flowers, like a mixed bouquet of field flowers. And she got tulips, and they were stunning. And then we talked about the benefits of meditation, and then he talked about Rudy Dulke, which I have to look into more because he was medically focused, and we were asking, is that similar to Louise Hay? And in Canada, there was also Lise Barbeau. A lot of people don't know about her. And then, of course, we did all the meditation, so he walked us through all of the exercises. And he said they call them exercises versus meditations in the Silva method because we're exercising the mind. Just like that. So that was the end of day 1. It's late, and I have to prepare tomorrow because I'm back for day 2 of the Silva method in Toronto. And if you're interested in taking a free introductory class to the Silva Method. It's called Experience the Silva Method. It's 90 minutes long. It's every other Monday. All the dates are on my website. And go check that out. And sometimes I even lead it. So maybe I'll see you there.